The last echo of applause faded from the arena as LeBron James finished his post-game interview, thanking the media for their questions with the practiced ease of a veteran. The Lakers had pulled off a narrow victory against the Celtics, and while his teammates had already headed to the locker room, LeBron had stayed behind for additional questions. Now, finally free, he grabbed his towel and water bottle, ready to join the others. That's when he noticed the boy. In the nearly empty arena, with maintenance staff already beginning their cleanup, a small figure sat alone in the third row. The child couldn't have been more than 10 years old, his slight frame hunched over, a basketball clutched tightly against his chest. Even from a distance, LeBron could see the boy's shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. LeBron paused, watching. Something about the solitary figure tugged at him. Security would be ushering everyone out soon, and the boy appeared to have no adult accompanying him. Making a quick decision, LeBron changed direction and walked toward the stands. "Hey there," LeBron said gently as he approached. "Game's over. Everyone's heading home." The boy looked up, his tear-streaked face registering shock at who was addressing him. He quickly wiped his eyes with his sleeve, embarrassment coloring his cheeks. "Mr. James," he whispered, his voice catching. "I'm sorry. I know I should go." LeBron sat down in the seat beside him, the plastic creaking under his weight. "No rush. I'm LeBron," he said, extending his hand. "What's your name?" "Ethan," the boy replied, his small hand disappearing in LeBron's as they shook. "Ethan Carter." Up close, LeBron could see details he'd missed from afar. Ethan's clothes were clean but slightly too large, as if they'd been chosen by someone who had to guess his size. His sneakers were well worn but clean. The basketball he clutched was old, its surface rubbed smooth in places, with a signature that LeBron recognized as his own from several seasons ago. "That's a pretty old ball you've got there," LeBron observed. Ethan's grip tightened on the basketball. "My dad got it for me. He stood in line for hours at your signing in Cleveland." His voice dropped to a whisper. "It's all I have left of him now." LeBron felt a chill at the words. "What do you mean, Ethan?" The boy took a shuddering breath. "My dad and mom. They died in a car accident 3 months ago. They were coming to pick me up from basketball practice." His voice cracked. It was raining. The other driver was texting. LeBron closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the weight of what he'd just heard. When he opened them, he looked at Ethan with new understanding. "I'm so sorry. Are you here with family tonight?" Ethan shook his head. "I'm with the West Side group home now. Mr. Collins, our supervisor, brought 4 of us to the game. He said we could stay until the end, but—" Ethan looked around the now empty section. "I think they left without me. Again." "Again?" LeBron asked sharply. Ethan shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant despite the fresh tears gathering in his eyes. "Mr. Collins says I'm too quiet, that I need to speak up more. Sometimes he forgets about me." LeBron felt a flash of anger at the unnamed supervisor, who could forget a child, especially one who had already lost so much. He glanced at his watch, then at the exits where security staff were starting to close up sections of the arena. "How about this?" LeBron suggested. "Let me call my team and we'll make sure you get back safely. But first, would you like to see the locker room? Meet some of the guys?" Ethan's eyes widened, momentarily forgetting his distress. "Really? Is that allowed?" LeBron smiled. "I think I might have some pull around here." As they walked toward the players' tunnel, LeBron texted his personal assistant, Maria, asking her to find out more about the West Side group home. "And this Mr. Collins." He kept his expression neutral for Ethan's sake, but internally, alarm bells were ringing. He'd worked with enough youth organizations through his foundation to know that forgetting a child after an event wasn't simply carelessness. It was neglect. In the locker room, LeBron's teammates welcomed Ethan warmly, offering him high fives and autographs. The boy remained quiet, but his eyes shone with excitement as Anthony Davis showed him how to properly grip the ball for a jump shot. While Ethan was distracted, LeBron pulled Maria aside. "What did you find out?" Maria's expression was grim. "West Side Group Home has had 3 citations in the past year for inadequate supervision. This Collins person is relatively new, hired 6 months ago. The home is understaffed and overcrowded. And Ethan's situation? His parents were Daniel and Teresa Carter, both killed instantly in the collision. No living grandparents, no aunts or uncles willing to take him in. He's been in the system for 3 months. His caseworker's name is Diane Murray. Maria handed LeBron a slip of paper with the caseworker's contact information. LeBron nodded, his mind racing. Call her, now. Tell her what happened tonight and that I'm personally ensuring Ethan gets back safely. While Maria made the call, LeBron rejoined Ethan, who was now wearing a Lakers cap given to him by one of the rookies. How are you holding up? LeBron asked. Ethan fingered the brim of his new cap. This is the best night I've had since. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. LeBron placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. Listen, Ethan. We've contacted your caseworker, Ms. Murray. She's going to meet us at the group home. I'm going to drive you back myself. Surprise flashed across Ethan's face. You don't have to do that. I'm sure Mr. Collins will come back when he realizes. No, LeBron said firmly. That's not how this works. Adults don't forget children in their care. What happened tonight isn't right, and we're going to address it, okay? Ethan nodded, his expression a mixture of relief and uncertainty. 30 minutes later, LeBron's black SUV pulled up to a large, institutional-looking building with peeling paint and a sign that read Westside Children's Group Home. Diane Murray, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, was waiting on the steps. Mr. James, she said, extending her hand. I can't thank you enough for bringing Ethan home safely. Rest assured, this incident will be thoroughly investigated. LeBron nodded, then crouched down to Ethan's level. I've got to go now, but Ms. Murray has my number. If you need anything, and I mean anything, you call me, all right? Ethan nodded, clutching his prized basketball tightly. And I'll be checking in on you, LeBron added. That's a promise. As he drove away, LeBron watched in his rearview mirror as Ethan and Ms. Murray entered the building. Something about the scene, the lonely boy, the rundown facility, the basketball that represented his last connection to his parents, stayed with LeBron long after he arrived home. That night, lying awake despite his post-game exhaustion, LeBron couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. He'd seen thousands of children through his foundation work, many with heart-wrenching stories, but something about this boy's quiet dignity in the face of devastating loss had struck a deep chord. LeBron reached for his phone and sent a text to Maria. First thing tomorrow, set up a meeting with my foundation team. The next morning, over breakfast with his wife Savannah, LeBron shared the story of his encounter. You should have seen him, Savannah, sitting there all alone, holding that basketball like it was his last lifeline. LeBron shook his head. And that group home? It's not a place where healing happens. Savannah listened thoughtfully, her eyes reflecting her husband's concern. What are you thinking of doing? I'm not sure yet. My foundation could help place him with a better foster family. Maybe set up a scholarship fund for his education. But, LeBron trailed off. But what? Savannah prompted. But I can't stop thinking that might not be enough. He's already been let down by the system. What if we could do more? The conversation was interrupted by their children bounding into the kitchen, ready for school, but the question lingered in LeBron's mind throughout the day. That afternoon, LeBron met with his foundation team. They discussed various ways to help Ethan: improved living arrangements, educational support, counseling services. All valuable interventions, yet LeBron found himself dissatisfied. These are all good options, he acknowledged. But they still leave him in the system, still leave his future uncertain. The foundation director nodded. That's unfortunately the reality for many children in foster care. We can improve conditions, but we can't fix the fundamental issue of family loss. Unless someone steps up to provide that family, LeBron thought to himself. After the meeting, LeBron made a detour before heading home. He drove to the Westside Group home, where he found Ethan sitting alone on the front steps, once again with his basketball in hand. The boy's face lit up when he saw LeBron's car. You came back, he said, sounding both surprised and pleased. I said I would check in, didn't I? LeBron replied with a smile. Want to shoot some hoops? There was a small, dilapidated basketball court behind the group home. The hoop was bent and the court surface cracked with weeds growing through, but Ethan's enthusiasm made it seem like the Staples Center floor. As they played a casual game of horse, LeBron observed how Ethan's entire demeanor changed with a basketball in his hands. The hesitation and sadness that had marked his face the previous night gave way to concentration and occasional flashes of joy when he made a shot. "You've got good form," LeBron commented after Ethan sank a free throw. "Your dad teach you?" Ethan nodded, bouncing the ball absent-mindedly. "Every Saturday morning, we'd go to the park and practice for hours." His voice grew softer. He always said basketball wasn't just a game, it was a way to learn about life, about teamwork and perseverance, and he faltered. "And family," LeBron finished for him. "Basketball's always been about family for me, too." They continued playing until the sun began to set. As LeBron prepared to leave, he noticed Ethan glancing nervously toward the group home, where other children were being called in for dinner. "Everything okay in there?" LeBron asked carefully. Ethan shrugged. "It's not bad. Just not home." He looked down at his sneakers. "Mr. Collins is nicer to me now after Ms. Murray talked to him, but he still doesn't like me much." LeBron felt that same protective anger rise within him. "Ethan, would you like to come to a Lakers practice sometime? Meet the whole team?" The boy's eyes widened. "Could I really?" "Absolutely. I'll arrange it with Ms. Murray." LeBron paused, then asked, "And maybe afterward you could come have dinner with my family. My kids are around your age." Ethan's smile was the brightest LeBron had seen yet. "I'd like that a lot." That night, after putting his own children to bed, LeBron had a long, serious conversation with Savannah. They talked about their family, their capacity for love, the challenges and rewards of parenthood. They discussed the practical considerations, their busy schedules, the public scrutiny, the legal complexities. But mostly they talked about Ethan, a boy who had lost everything and yet still found the courage to smile when shooting baskets. The next day, LeBron called Diane Murray and scheduled a meeting. 3 days later, they sat in her modest office, discussing possibilities that would have seemed unimaginable a week earlier. Temporary guardianship would be the first step, Miss Murray explained. It would allow Ethan to live with you while maintaining the legal framework of the foster system. If, after a trial period, everyone feels it's working out, we could begin discussing more permanent arrangement. "Like adoption?" Savannah asked. Ms. Murray nodded. "Yes, though that would be further down the road. There would be home studies, background checks, the standard procedure for any prospective adoptive parents. Even for us." LeBron raised an eyebrow. Ms. Murray smiled kindly. "Even for LeBron James, famous or not when it comes to a child's welfare, we follow protocol?" "That's fair," LeBron acknowledged. "When can we start?" 2 weeks later, after expedited paperwork and preliminary approval, LeBron and Savannah sat with Ethan in the visitor's room of the group home. They had met several times since the initial encounter at the Lakers game, including the promised practice session and family dinner, which had gone remarkably well. Now they were about to have the most important conversation yet. "Ethan," LeBron began carefully, "Savannah and I have been talking. We've gotten to know you over these past couple of weeks, and we think you're a pretty amazing kid." Ethan looked between them, curiosity in his eyes. "We were wondering how you would feel about coming to stay with us for a while," Savannah continued. "Not just for dinner or an afternoon, but to live with us, to be part of our family." Ethan's expression froze, disbelief written across his features. "You mean like adoption?" "Eventually, maybe," LeBron said. "For now, it would be called guardianship. We'd be responsible for taking care of you, making sure you have everything you need. You'd have your own room, go to school with our kids. You'd be part of our family in every way that matters. But only if that's something you want," Savannah added gently. "This is your decision too, Ethan." The boy was silent for a long moment, his fingers working nervously over the surface of his basketball, which was never far from his side. "What about my mom and dad?" he finally asked in a small voice. I don't want to forget them. LeBron moved to sit beside Ethan. You will never forget your parents, and we would never want you to. They will always be your mom and dad. Nothing changes that. We would just be additional people who care about you, who want to help you grow up the way your parents would have wanted. Ethan considered this, his young face serious with contemplation. Could I keep their picture by my bed? And this basketball? Of course, Savannah assured him. Those are your treasures. They come with you wherever you go. Ethan took a deep breath, then looked up at them both. I think I'd like to try it. To be part of your family. The transition wasn't without challenges. There were legal hurdles, media speculation, and the inevitable adjustment period as Ethan settled into his new home. The Lakers organization helped shield the family from excessive publicity, and LeBron's foundation handled much of the paperwork and logistics. But still, it was a major life change for everyone involved. Ethan's room in the James household became a sanctuary of sorts, decorated with Lakers memorabilia but also with photos of his parents and the basketball that had first connected him to LeBron. He attended the same private school as LeBron's children, where he initially struggled with the academics but showed remarkable resilience and determination to catch up. Basketball became a bridge between his past and present. LeBron would often find Ethan in the home court at odd hours, practicing shots with the same focused expression his own father had described. They would sometimes play in silence, the rhythm of the bouncing ball and swishing net saying everything that needed to be said. There were difficult moments, nights when Ethan would wake up crying for his parents, days when the grief would overwhelm him unexpectedly. On those occasions, LeBron or Savannah would sit with him, not trying to replace what he had lost, but offering a different kind of comfort, a reminder that he wasn't alone in his pain. 3 months into the arrangement, LeBron received a call from Diane Murray. The temporary guardianship period was coming to an end and decisions needed to be made about next steps. That evening, LeBron and Savannah sat down with Ethan after dinner. Ms. Murray called today, LeBron began. She wants to know if we're ready to talk about making this arrangement more permanent. But before we talk to her, we wanted to talk to you. Ethan looked between them, suddenly alert. You mean about adoption? Savannah nodded. We've grown to love having you as part of our family, Ethan. We'd like to make it official, legal, but this is a big decision, and your feelings are the most important part of it. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, if you adopt me, would my name change? LeBron hadn't expected this question. It could if you wanted it to, or you could keep your name to honor your parents, or maybe both. Ethan Carter James. Ethan considered this, rolling the options over in his mind. I think my dad would understand. He was your biggest fan. A small smile touched his lips. He used to say that if he could choose anyone in the world to be my basketball coach, it would be you. LeBron felt his throat tighten with emotion. That means a lot to me, Ethan. So, Savannah prompted gently, what are you thinking? Would you like us to start the adoption process? Ethan looked down at his hands for a long moment, then back up at them with suddenly clear eyes. Yes, he said simply. I would like that very much. The adoption process took several more months, during which time Ethan became an increasingly integrated member of the James family. He developed a special bond with LeBron's son Bryce, who was closest to him in age. The two would often be found playing video games or practicing basketball moves together. LeBron's daughter, Shuri, appointed herself Ethan's little big sister, taking it upon herself to explain family traditions and introduce him to favorite spots around the house. Through it all, LeBron was careful to keep Ethan's story private, protecting him from the media circus that would inevitably erupt if the full details became public. The official story was simply that the James family was fostering a child through LeBron's foundation, a partial truth that afforded them some privacy. On the day of the adoption finalization, the family gathered at the courthouse. Ethan, dressed in a suit that matched LeBron's, clutched his treasured basketball as they waited for their case to be called. When asked by the judge if he understood what adoption meant, Ethan spoke clearly and confidently. It means that even though I lost my first family, I've been given a second one. It means I'll always have people who care about me and support me. It means I belong somewhere again. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom as the judge signed the final papers, officially making Ethan Carter James part of the family. That evening, they celebrated at home with a small gathering of close friends and family. LeBron noticed Ethan slip away during the festivities and found him in the backyard court, shooting baskets in the twilight. "Everything okay?" LeBron asked, joining him on the court. Ethan nodded, continuing to shoot. "I'm just thinking about my mom and dad, wondering if they can see me, if they're happy about today." LeBron caught the ball as it came through the net and held it for a moment. "I believe they can see you, and I believe they're proud of how brave you've been, how you've kept going even when it was hard." Ethan took the ball back, bouncing it thoughtfully. "Sometimes I feel guilty for being happy," he admitted. "Like I'm betraying them by having a new family." LeBron placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You know what I think. I think love doesn't work that way. It's not a limited resource. Loving us doesn't mean you love your parents any less. It just means your heart has grown bigger." Ethan considered this, then nodded slowly. "Like how you can love basketball and still love other things too." LeBron smiled. "Exactly like that." Together they shot baskets as the sky darkened and stars began to appear. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of the party continuing, of family and friends, celebrating not just a legal procedure completed, but a heart's journey from loss to belonging. "LeBron," Ethan said after a while, "can I tell you something?" "Anything. When my parents died, I thought I'd never be happy again. I thought that part of my life was over forever." He caught the ball and held it close to his chest. "But now I know that's not true. Sad things happen, but good things can happen too, even after. I think that's what my dad meant about basketball teaching life lessons." LeBron felt his eyes grow misty. "Your dad sounds like a very wise man." "He was," Ethan agreed. Then, after a beat, he added, "Like you." As they returned to the house, Ethan slipped his hand into LeBron's, a small gesture that spoke volumes about trust rebuilt and hearts healing. In that moment, LeBron knew that while championships and MVP trophies adorned his shelves, his greatest achievement would always be this: helping a broken-hearted boy find his way back to joy, one basketball game at a time. The following season brought new challenges and triumphs for the expanded James family. Ethan, now officially Ethan Carter James, was thriving in school and had joined a competitive youth basketball league. LeBron attended as many of his games as his own schedule allowed, cheering from the bleachers like any proud parent. The media had eventually caught wind of the adoption, but LeBron had been firm about preserving Ethan's privacy. When asked about his newest family member in interviews, he spoke only in general terms about the joy of parenthood and the importance of creating opportunities for children in need. One evening after Ethan's team won an important tournament game with him scoring the winning basket, LeBron found the boy sitting quietly in the car on the ride home. "That was some shot," LeBron commented. "Pressure situation, clock running down, and you stayed composed. That's not something that can be taught." Ethan smiled at the praise but remained thoughtful. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think it would be okay if I started a foundation like yours, but maybe focused on kids who've lost their parents?" LeBron glanced at him, surprised by the question. "I think that would be more than okay. It would be amazing. What made you think of that?" Ethan looked out the window, his reflection contemplative in the glass. "At the tournament today, I met this kid from another team. His dad died last year, heart attack during a business trip. He said basketball is the only thing that makes him feel normal anymore." He turned back to LeBron. "I told him about losing both my parents, about how you found me at the arena that night, about how having someone believe in me changed everything." LeBron felt a surge of pride so intense it nearly overwhelmed him. This boy, who had endured such profound loss, was already thinking about how to help others through similar pain. "I think a foundation is a wonderful idea," LeBron said, "and I'd be honored to help you set it up." Ethan's face brightened. "Really? Could we call it the Carter James Foundation?" To honor both my families? I can't imagine a better name, LeBron agreed. Over the next few months, LeBron worked with Ethan to design a foundation focused on helping children who had lost parents or guardians. They created programs that combined grief counseling with basketball camps, mentorship opportunities, and educational support. LeBron's team of foundation professionals handled the logistics and legal aspects, but the vision was distinctly Ethan's. The day of the foundation's official launch arrived on the first anniversary of Ethan's adoption. For the first time, Ethan agreed to a carefully managed press conference where he would speak about his experience. Standing at the podium with LeBron and Savannah beside him, Ethan addressed the gathered media with remarkable poise for a 12-year-old. "When I lost my parents, I thought my life was over," he began. "I felt alone in a way I can't really explain. But then something unexpected happened. I met someone who saw me, really saw me. At the moment I felt most invisible." As Ethan spoke, LeBron watched the faces of the reporters in the audience. Even these hardened journalists seemed moved by the boy's straightforward eloquence. "The Carter James Foundation is for kids like me," Ethan continued. "Kids who think their story might be over when really, it's just taking a different turn. We want them to know that grief doesn't have to be the end of joy. That family can be found in unexpected places." After the press conference, as they were leaving the venue, a young girl approached Ethan. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, her small hand clutching a worn teddy bear. "Are you the boy who lost his parents?" she asked directly. Ethan nodded solemnly. "Yes, that's me." The girl hugged her bear tighter. "My mommy died last month. Daddy says I'm being very brave, but sometimes I don't feel brave at all." Ethan crouched down to her eye level. "Can I tell you a secret? I don't feel brave all the time either. Sometimes I still cry about my parents, and that's okay." The girl's father approached, apologizing for the interruption, but LeBron waved away his concerns. "Your daughter is welcome at our first foundation camp," LeBron told him, handing over his assistant's business card. "No cost. We'd be honored to have her." As they drove home, LeBron reflected on the circle that had somehow completed itself. From finding a solitary grieving boy in an empty arena to watching that same boy reach out to comfort another child in pain. It was a journey that transcended basketball, fame, even family in the conventional sense. It was about the human capacity for renewal, for building bridges across the chasms of loss. "You did good today," LeBron told Ethan as they pulled into their driveway. "Really good." Ethan looked up from the foundation brochure he'd been studying. "I was just thinking, if my parents hadn't died, I would never have met you, never become part of your family, never started the foundation." His brow furrowed. "Is it wrong to think that maybe something good came from something so terrible?" LeBron considered the question carefully. "I don't think it's wrong. I think it's how we make sense of the hardest parts of life, by finding meaning in what comes after, by using our pain to help others through theirs." That night, after the household had quieted, LeBron passed by Ethan's room and noticed the light still on. He knocked softly and opened the door to find Ethan sitting on his bed, looking at a photo album. "Can't sleep?" LeBron asked. Ethan shook his head. "Just looking at some old pictures." He turned the album so LeBron could see. "This was my 10th birthday, my last one with them." The photo showed a younger Ethan beaming between his parents, a basketball-shaped cake on the table before him. The love in the family tableau was palpable. LeBron sat on the edge of the bed. "They gave you a strong foundation, Ethan. Everything you are, your kindness, your resilience, your big heart, that started with them. And continues with you," Ethan added quietly. He closed the album and placed it carefully on his nightstand, next to the famous basketball. "I had a dream last night. My parents were there, and you and Savannah too. Everyone was together, like one big family. It didn't feel strange at all." LeBron smiled. "That doesn't sound strange to me. Sounds like your heart figuring things out." As LeBron rose to leave, Ethan spoke again. "You know what my dad used to say about basketball? That the beauty of the game is that while it has rules and structure, the most magical moments happen when players improvise, when they find new paths forward that no one expects. Your dad was right about that, LeBron agreed. I think life is like that too, Ethan continued thoughtfully. There's a basic structure. You're born, you grow up, you live, you die. But the magic is in the improvisation, in finding new ways forward when the original play breaks down. LeBron paused at the door, struck by the wisdom in the child's words. That's profound, Ethan, and absolutely true. LeBron? Ethan called as LeBron was about to close the door. Yes? Thank you for improvising with me. As LeBron gently closed the door, he felt a sense of completion that transcended his many professional accomplishments. In helping Ethan find his way back from unimaginable loss, he had discovered dimensions of his own heart he hadn't known existed. The journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges ahead, more moments of grief and joy, more lessons to learn from each other. But they would face those moments together, as family, bound not by blood but by something perhaps even stronger, the choice to love, to believe, to build something new from the fragments of what was broken. And in that choice lay a kind of victory that no championship could ever match, the victory of a heart healed, a family forged, and a future reclaimed from the ashes of loss. As the Carter James Foundation grew over the next few years, so did Ethan. At 15, he had sprouted several inches, beginning to show the lankiness that might one day approach LeBron's impressive height. His basketball skills had developed too. He was now starting point guard for his high school team, his court vision and leadership, drawing attention from college scouts despite his young age. On the third anniversary of his adoption, Ethan requested something special, a visit to the cemetery where his birth parents were buried. LeBron and Savannah had taken him there before, of course, but this time Ethan wanted to go alone with LeBron. They stood together before the double headstone, the morning sun casting long shadows across the quiet grounds. Ethan placed fresh flowers before the marker, then stepped back, his expression contemplative. I used to think places like this were just about death, he said after a while. Now I think they're really about life, about remembering the lives people lived, the impact they had. LeBron nodded, giving Ethan the space to express his thoughts. My parents gave me the first part of my life, Ethan continued. They taught me about love, about family, about believing in myself. And then, when I lost them, when I thought everything was over, he turned to look at LeBron. You showed me that my story could continue, that I could honor them by living fully by helping others. LeBron placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, feeling the young man he was becoming beneath his palm. They would be incredibly proud of you, Ethan, of the person you've become, of the lives you're touching through the foundation. Ethan nodded, his eyes glistening but steady. I know, and I want you to know something too. He took a deep breath. When I first came to live with you, I was afraid I'd forget them somehow. That having a new family would erase the memory of my first one, but that didn't happen. Instead, I found a way to carry both with me, to be Ethan Carter James in the fullest sense. As they walked back to the car, Ethan paused and looked back at the gravesite once more. Last week, at the foundation camp, there was this little boy. He'd lost his mom to cancer. At the end of the week, he told me that for the first time since she died, he'd felt happy without feeling guilty about it. His voice grew quiet. That's when I knew for sure that none of this, finding you that night in the arena, becoming part of your family, starting the foundation, none of it was an accident. What do you mean? LeBron asked. I mean that sometimes the most devastating losses can lead to unexpected gifts, not to replace what was lost, but to build something new alongside it. Ethan turned to face LeBron fully. You saved me that night, but in a way, I think I was meant to find you too, to help show the world that family is bigger than blood, that healing is possible even after the worst kind of pain. As they drove home, LeBron thought about the shy, heartbroken boy he'd found in the empty arena, clutching a basketball like it was his last connection to a world that had crumbled around him. He thought about how that same boy had grown into this thoughtful young man beside him, who had already touched hundreds of lives through his foundation, and whose future stretched bright with promise. In the NBA, legacy was measured in championships, in records broken, in banners hung from arena rafters. But as LeBron glanced at Ethan, this child of his heart, if not his blood, he understood that his true legacy would be measured in moments like these, in lives transformed, in pain transmuted to purpose, in love that transcended conventional boundaries. "You know," LeBron said as they neared home, "when people talk about my career years from now, they'll mention the championships, the MVPs, the records. But none of that will matter as much as this, as you, as our family, as the foundation we've built together." He smiled at Ethan. "Some victories don't come with trophies, but they're the ones that count the most." Ethan returned the smile, understanding in his eyes. "Like finding your way forward when you thought the game was over." "Exactly like that," LeBron agreed, thinking how basketball had brought them together, but love had made them family. An unexpected play that had changed both their lives immeasurably for the better. As they pulled into the driveway, Savannah and the other children were waiting to begin the adoption anniversary celebration, now a cherished family tradition. Ethan bounded up the steps to greet them, his earlier solemnity replaced by the natural exuberance of a teenager surrounded by those who loved him. LeBron watched for a moment from the car, struck by the completeness of the scene. There were moments in life, rare and precious, when past, present, and future aligned in perfect clarity. This was one of those moments, honoring what had been lost, celebrating what had been found, and moving forward together into whatever lay ahead. Ethan turned back, catching LeBron's gaze from the doorway. The boy, young man now, raised his hand in a gesture that was part wave, part salute, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had traveled together. LeBron returned the gesture, his heart full with the understanding that while championships and records were earned, family, in all its forms, was the greatest gift of all. A gift not taken for granted, but chosen, nurtured, and treasured through all life's seasons, through loss and renewal, through endings that became unexpected beginnings.